Hello, and welcome to Precon Decon, the video series where I deconstruct the pre-constructed decks of Magic the Gathering's history. In this video, we are continuing our look at the Fifth Dawn pre-constructed decks, and we are going to look at Stampede, which is a red and green deck. So let's take a look at the deck list. So, we have 26 creatures, 6 instants, 4 artifacts, 1 enchantment, and 23 land, and we have a mana curve off to the side there. So let's start looking at these many creatures. As you'll see, lots of 1s and 2s of, so yeah, not a lot of consistency in the deck, so we're actually going to have quite a few slides. So, well, let's crack on. So, yeah, it took until the third set of Mirrodin to just have a standard red-green aggro deck, and here we go. Yeah, by law, we have to include a red-green aggro deck in every block. So this is it. This is Stampede. So. Let's just from the start. Let's just say up front, this follows exactly the same criticisms I have about Wicked Big from Mirrodin and Swarm and Slam from Darksteel, in the fact that it is in the Mirrodin block and it does nothing really to show off Mirrodin's gimmick, which is a lot of cool artifacts. It is just generic red-green creatures. So like could be any set. It doesn't, it's, I don't know, just I know I keep going on about that, but like it really confuses me, that design choice to I don't know. Anyway. The last deck, Sunburst, is much better. Let's just get through Stampede. So, one of the rares of the deck is Cosmic Lava, who is 3 mana for a 7/6 trample, which is incredible to think, but no, at the beginning of your upkeep, you have to sacrifice it unless you sacrifice 2 land, which is, I mean, I just feel you would play this, okay, let's say you get this down turn 3, you go into turn 4, you sacrifice 2 lands, you're down to 1 land, you maybe play another land, you're up to 2. I would say you would swing with this once and then like let it die. I mean, I don't know. It's just such a huge gamble to take, I think. At least you can sort of sacrifice itself, like you're not forced to sacrifice 2 lands. Like some creatures are, but yeah, it's just like a weird giant balloon creature. I have no idea what like what like the lore behind Cosmic Lava is. Original Mirrodin had some really weird cards. Anyway, Cosmic Lava, that's one of the rares. It's fine, I guess. A single Fangren Hunter, just a 5 mana for a 4/4 trample. Not much to say about that. 2 Fangren Pathcutters, 6 mana for a 4/6. Whenever it attacks, all your attacking creatures get trample until end of turn, which is fine, I guess. Not a lot of the things that in here actually have trample themselves, so I think the Pathcutter would have actually been fairly important. And then a single Iron Barb Hellion, 6 mana for a 5/4 haste, but it can't block. Sure, sure, I guess. I mean, I guess it forces you to be aggressive with it, I guess. Fine. 2 Tyrannax, so 6 mana for a 5/4 beast. It is now a dinosaur, you'll be happy to know. It's been oracled. 1 colourless, 1 green to give itself -1/+1 till end of turn, which I always feel is like, because we've seen this ability before on some green cards. The one that immediately springs to mind, there's like a Kavu back in Invasion that has this ability, and it makes no sense to me for green to have this ability. Like, why is that not just like +1/+1? Or the Root Wilder ability where it's like quite a big boost, but like you can only activate it once a turn. I don't understand what the lore, kind of the narrative is for like reducing its power to give itself extra toughness. I don't know. But in any case, it's 6 mana for 5/4. That's like, it's just overcosted and like not wonderful. Goblin Brawler. So 2 of those, 3 mana for a 2/2 with first strike, which is sort of okay. It can't be equipped, not an issue in this deck. I don't think there's actually any equipment, but yeah, I mean, I think if you just play it as 3 mana 2/2 first strike, it's okay. It's okay. A single Spark Elemental. This is actually pretty good. It's like Baby Ball Lightning. So 1 red mana for a 3/1 trample and haste. End of turn, you sacrifice it. Would have liked to see more of these actually, because I really like Spark Elemental. I think that's pretty good. And then a single Volshock Berserker, who's 4 mana for a 3/2 with haste. Not much to say about that. It's pretty boring. It's a green Mirrodin deck, so we have to have a Telgelad guy. It's like required by law. So 2 mana, 2/1 protection from artifacts. Fine. moving on. 2 Viridian Lawbearers, so 4 mana for a 3/3. 3 colorless, a green, tap, target creature gets +X/+X till end of turn, where X is the number of artifacts your opponents control. So it does count all opponents, but again, this, and I've said this before in other videos, this relies on something. The effect is only as strong as something that you have no control over. Like, you can't control how many artifacts your opponents own. If this was, going back to like what I said in Wicked Big, like if green in Mirrodin had a better relationship with artifacts, like if it had been empowered by its own artifacts, then you could play around with that, because then you'd be like, right, well, I've definitely, half my deck is artifacts and I have Viridian Lawbearers, so I can definitely rely on this power boost. But here you can't, because it's relying on your opponent to cast artifacts, which, I don't know. It's just a weird choice to make. I think it's an okay card. I think the activation cost is pretty expensive. I say, because I say it's not guaranteed how big that boost is going to be. I don't know. And a single Goblin Replica, he's cropped up in a few decks. 3 mana for a 2/2, 3 cards in a red, sack him to destroy an artifact. Yep, fine. So these a few better cards here. So we have a single Eternal Witness. So I remember this getting a lot of hype when Fifth Dawn came out, because it was, I mean, it is still, by today's standards, really good. So 3 mana for a 2/1, and when it comes into play, you just get any card from your graveyard back into your hand. Super good. What's not to like about it? And yeah, Eternal Witness, super good card, great art. Yeah, very iconic superstar from Fifth Dawn, honestly. Again, wish there'd been more than one in the deck, honestly, just to show it off. 2 Spike Shot Goblins, 3 mana for a 1/2. You can pay 1 red and tap it to deal damage each with its power to target creature or player. You've got a few ways of increasing power in the deck, but not too many off the top of my head, or at least not permanent ways. So, I mean, this doesn't reach its full potential, I don't think. But it's nice that it does have an ability that scales up with its power. 2 Sylvok Explorers, 2 mana for 1/1. Taps to give you mana of 1 mana. Gives you mana of, oh my god, gives you 1 mana of any color that a land your opponent control could produce, which is fine. He's basically like Felwar Stone as a creature, which is okay. He is not reaching full potential in this deck, but in Sunburst, which is the next deck we look at, he's in it, and he's a lot better there. But he's okay here. He's just a mana dork. And then a single Volshock Shaman, 3 mana for a 1/1 haste, and does 1 damage to target creature or player. Perfectly fine. It's it's Prodigal Sorcerer, but in red and with haste. So we are definitely now firmly in the territory in Magic the Gathering history of the ping ability fully being in red. A single Slith Firewalker, 2 red for a 1/1 haste. It's one of the Sliths, so whenever it deals combat damage to a player, it gets a +1/+1 counter. Yep, sure. A single Tangalasp, 2 mana for a 1/2. Whenever it blocks or becomes blocked, destroy that creature at end of combat, which is pretty good. This is kind of, I would say this is better than Death Touch, because it's not relying on dealing damage. If you got a lure effect on this, make everything block it, then it kills everything. So I think in that way it's actually a little bit better than Death Touch. Tel'Gallad Exile, 2 of these, just a 4 mana 2/3 regenerator. Yep, fine, not very interesting. And then Tel'Gallad Life Breather, who's 5 mana for a 3/2. 1 green tap, sacrifice a forest, regenerate target creature. Just a bad card, isn't it? That's just a very bad card. It's overcosted, being 5 mana for a 3/2 with no other abilities, nothing like trample or anything like that. And that activation cost of having to sacrifice a forest to regenerate a creature is also not great. I mean, when you look at the Trolls of Tel'Gallad from Mirrodin, they're not much more expensive than this. They're maybe only 2 mana more, much higher power and toughness, and their ability to regenerate a creature is just 1 color and 1 green, and doesn't require tapping. So this is it's just not a great card at all. Right, we're done with creatures, so now we start looking at this absolute grab bag of burn and other spells. So a single Barbed Lightning, 3 mana instant, does 3 damage to a creature or 3 damage to a player, and if you entwine it for an extra 2, you get to do both. Fine. I think it's still expensive, but fine. Grab the Reins. This is pretty good, I think, because it's a threaten effect or act of treason at instant speed. It doesn't untap the creature you gain control of. So you can't do it, say, I mean, you can do it mid-combat, but then, like, you can't grab an attacking creature, it untaps, and then use it to block with, which is ideally the kind of thing you want to do. If you entwine it for 7, you can grab something and then immediately sacrifice it to do damage back to another creature or player, which I think is pretty good, although, you know, expensive. But you've got quite a lot of ramp in the deck, so you could go up to that, I suppose. Magma Jet, this is actually a pretty good red spell. So 2 mana instant, does 2 damage to target creature player, and has Scry 2. So finally, this is where Scry shows up for the first time, or at least keyworded, is in 5th Dawn. So Scry is, we see it a lot nowadays. I think it's like an evergreen keyword these days. But yeah, at the time it was only on a few spells. I think maybe 2 per color, if that. But yeah, having a burn spell with Scry 2 is pretty good. And then a single Rain of Rust. This is just very overcosted, I think. 5 mana instant to either destroy an artifact or destroy a land, and you can entwine it for 4. So if you want to spend 9 mana, you can destroy an artifact and a land. But I feel like once you've hit 9 mana, destroying a land is like, what's the point? Like, your opponent also probably has enough land that destroying 1 more is not going to matter. It's just quite overcosted, you know. So the other rare of the deck is Rite of Passage. So 3 mana enchantment. Whenever a creature you control is dealt damage, put a +1/+1 counter on it. But the damage is dealt before the counter is put on. Useful reminder text. This is an okay rare, I think. You actually, thinking about it, you actually have some ways of dealing damage to your creatures that don't involve combat. Like you've got the Volshock Shaman, you've got the Spike Shot Goblin. So you could do that. You could ping your own stuff to slowly build it up, I guess. Yeah, I don't know. It's like an okay card. Yeah, it's just fine. It's just fine. A single Ferocious Charge, so 3 mana, instant, target creature says +4/+4 on stone turn, and Scry 2. Yep, perfectly okay. And a single Tel'Jalad Justice, 2 mana for destroy an artifact, and it has Scry 2. Again, also perfectly fine. And then we do actually have a few artifacts here. So a Goblin Cannon. This is quite fun, and a good teaching card. I would actually say. So 4 mana, and you'd spend 2, and it does 1 damage to target creature or player, and then you sacrifice Goblin Cannon. The teaching moment is for new players is when you realize that you can stack this ability multiple times. It's not 2 sacrifice Goblin Cannon. It's 2, then the effect, which includes sacrificing it. So if you have a lot of mana, you can just pile all your mana into it, do multiple instances of 1 damage, and then it gets sacrificed. So a good teaching card. I think it's a functional reprint of a really, I want to say, from Antiquities or Homelands or something. I think Rocket Launcher. There was actually a Rocket Launcher card in Magic the Gathering, which is pretty funny. A single Pyrite Spellbomb. I've talked about this before. This is really good. I think one of the better spell bombs. 1 mana, pay a red, sack it and does shock, or sack it and draw a card. Yeah, perfectly fine. And then 2 Talisman of Impulse. So this helps you ramp up some of your bigger spells in this. Just 2 mana, gives you either 1 colors or red or green, but it does 1 damage to you. So what could have been? Well, I'll tell you what could have been. It could have had more consistency in cards. Like, there's so many 1s and 2s of. I feel like playing this would have felt, I don't know, just not great. You know, like, you just can't rely on drawing anything, because at most you've got 2 copies of some things, and like it's such like a weird, bad selection of cards. And that's just me. Like, I feel like it's so hard to make red green aggro bad. And I do actually feel this is a pretty bad deck. But let's look at what could have been. Maybe some of these cards could have made the deck better. So Oof Vandals is a green creature, 3 mana. I think it's a 2/2. I've got the power and toughness because I'm a genius. You spend 1 green to sacrifice it. You counter an activated ability from an artifact source, and then you destroy that artifact, which is pretty fun if you wanted to push this anti-artifact theme. Seething Song is just a ritual, 3 mana, gives you 5 red mana, so helps you power out stuff quicker. And then there's like so many rares I feel like could have been in here instead of Cosmic Lava or the Rite of Passage. Beacon of Destruction is just a nice big burn spell that you can keep reusing. Tornado Elemental comes in, does a ton of damage to enemy creature with the flying, and it has like super trample. It does its damage as if it wasn't blocked at all. Magma Giant is a big 5/5. It comes in, does like 2 damage to everything, which again I think just would have been, big stompy creature, whack it down, kill a bunch of small creatures, and then you've got a big 5/5. And Razormane Mastercore, I think this would have been fun as well. 5 mana for a 5/5 first strike. At the beginning of upkeep, you have to discard a card to keep it around. And at the beginning of the draw step, it does 3 damage automatically to something. So I think that would have been a really good aggressive creature to have in this deck. I think that definitely would have been better than Cosmic Lava, because I think that thing is it's just weird, isn't it? It's just weird. It's a giant balloon creature. So in summary, yeah, I do not like this at all, and I usually like these kind of red green aggro decks. I think I think it just goes back to the fact it's like a Mirrodin deck, and it just does nothing. It doesn't take advantage of what Mirrodin does best, which is like fun artifacts. It's just a random grab bag of like, I don't know, just like subpar creatures. Apart from Eternal Witness, who's on the box art, who Eternal Witness is great, and there are some good cards in this deck. I just think like it could have gone a long way to being better. But that's just my opinion after seeing the deck and looking at the cards in it. What did you think of the deck after this review? Did you have this deck and did you play with it? Did you make changes to it, or what changes would you make to it? That's what I'd really like to know. So stick a comment below. I'd like to hear from you. But I will be back next time to look at the last Fifth Dawn pre-constructed deck. But until then, thank you for watching and listening, and have a good day.